Thank you for tuning in to Lynn Community Television's Ward Councilor Candidate Forum. The candidates running for Ward Councilors in Lynn are: in Ward 1, Wayne Losey and Bill O'Shea. In Ward 3, Darren Sear and George Mimiteus. In Ward 4, Richard Colucci and Natasha Meje Madre. In Ward 5, Diana Chakutis and Marvin Hippolyte. In Ward 6, Cinda Don and Fred Hogan. And in Ward 7, Alexis Reynoso and Jay Walsh.
Good evening. I'm Mukala Kabongo, LCTV's news director and moderator for tonight's forum tonight. We will hear from all the candidates running for Ward Councilor of 6 of the 7 wards in Lynn on a variety of issues. Ward 2 Councilor Rick Staubert is running unopposed. The LCTV staff have developed the questions as a group, and they will include some of the topics we have seen on social media that the group, and they will include some of the topics we have seen on social media the public has shown interest in. We will also ask one viewer-submitted question. The timekeeper for tonight's will be Richard Coppinger, LCTV staff member and HR guy. So the rules for tonight are as follows. And make sure everybody pays attention to the rules, all right? There will be no opening statements from each candidate to allow more questions to be asked. The candidates to the moderator's left will answer the first question. The candidate to their left will answer the next question first and continue this way the rest of the forum. Candidates will be allowed 90 seconds to answer questions. This is not a debate, so no extra time will be allotted to respond to a previous answer. If a candidate would like to respond to another candidate's answer, they will not be granted additional time and must do so only within their allotted time. The timekeeper will hold a yellow card when 30 seconds remain and a red card when 10 seconds remain. If candidates go over the time, the moderator will interrupt and cut off the candidate, and we have a bell. Candidates who do not respect the timekeeping rules will be disqualified from participating for the remainder of the debate. At the conclusion of the questioning, each candidate will be allotted 90 seconds closing statement. The same timekeeping rules will apply for this. So let us begin with the first question. You guys all ready? All right. If elected, how do you plan to work with your constituents and city department to improve services? Start over here.
Okay. Thank you, Mukala. I plan on continuing doing what I do now. Constituent services are very important. They're quality of life issues with residents, working with various city offices to accomplish certain things that the resident needs, whether it's a tree trim, tree removal, a sidewalk repair, patching potholes in the road. There's also different city offices in City Hall that a resident may require advice and where to direct them to it. And that's something I do enjoy. I pride myself on returning all of my calls, and that I'm very accessible, either email, Facebook, or I return all of my calls. So I think it's very important as a counselor that we provide these constituent services. And I'm happy that I feel I do a good job, and I hope I can return as your counselor, and call me anytime. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Shea. I'm running for Ward 1 Council. Ward constituent complaints and constituent requests are the most important thing, I believe, that a ward councilor does. In Ward 1, I've already knocked doors. I've had a number of complaints. I've had a number of issues brought to my attention. I've tried to direct the residents to the proper departments in City Hall to address those. If elected, I will do better than that. I will go to these departments myself. I will promise to return every call that is made to me, every email that is sent to me. I think it's important not only to talk to you on the phone or return an email, but I have also gone, after getting a call, to the constituent's address and spoken to them personally, which allows you to take photographs of bad roadways and sidewalks and the like, and to really address the issue and get an understanding of what the real problem is in the constituent's mind, and to be able to show that to the city department as well to try and get those things rectified. And that is a promise. I will return your calls and I will come see you.
Thank you. I will continue to do what I've done since I've been elected councilor in Ward 3. Not only do I answer phone calls, but I actually show up at the constituent's door. And if it's a snow emergency, I drive my plow there and I plow their street. In the past, where we've had flooding issues, I've actually showed up with pumps, pumped people's cellars out, trees that have fallen, limbs, I've gone and cleaned them up, worked with the DPW, the police department and fire department, make sure everybody's safe. I'm at City Hall every single Tuesday night from 4 o'clock until there are no more people that are there. I answer every phone call. I'm on Facebook now. I'm stepping into, I guess, the 21st century. I have an email, dpcyr@hotmail.com. I give everybody my cell phone number, 781-710-8985. I believe the most important thing that a councilor can do is always be there for their constituents, no matter what the issue is. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Calucci. I'm the Ward 4 councilor. I've been doing this for over 2 decades now, and I'm continuing what I'm doing. I'm concerned about my constituents. When they call me, I know it's important to them, so I respond. I'm excessive, I'm responsive, and I'm accessible. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natasha Madry, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 4. And I believe that it is very important to always return residents' phone calls and emails. Whatever means of communication is very important. I think that we need to have neighborhood meetings, and during those neighborhood meetings, I think it would be very nice to have translation services available, because not all of the residents in Ward 4 speak English. So I would like to work to make sure that everybody feels that their voice is brought to the table. And I would connect these residents with whatever their issues are at City Hall in the correct departments so that they can get their issues solved. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diana Chakutis. I'm the Ward 5 councilor. Basically, it's kind of a repeat question for some of us. We do the same thing. We call back, and I will admit I may have missed a few phone calls or an email, lost a piece of paper with the phone number, but for the most part, I call everyone back. We show up at people's houses. Especially elderly, they need help. Sometimes we'll show up and shovel the front stairs for them. We help people with their sidewalks. People with wheelchairs, some of the sidewalks lifted up. We're trying to get a lot of those fixed for people downtown. There's a lot of things that we do, everyday life stuff that people don't realize. I have a list here of what we do. Like Darren said, we've gone and cleaned debris out from storms when the DPW can't get to it. We've done shoveling. I've actually called, I think Jay, or one of them, I needed a street plow. The DPW was busy. They went and helped a little side street for me. We go above and beyond. We do a lot of things for the constituents. We do have our meetings. We have monthly meetings for Ward 5. So if anyone's interested, we do meet the last Monday of the month at the police station and the police department. The police officers are there to answer any questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marvin Ippolit. I'm running for Ward 5 City Council. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge George May Mateus, who's running for Ward 3. He lost his father today. He would have loved to have been here. He and I share a lot of the same values, so that's really sad. Keep him in your thoughts and prayers. A lot of folks in the city, especially in Ward 5, have had difficulty getting in touch with counselors. I myself have had that, and I get it. It's a really tough job, and when you call most offices, they have staff on hand. I think one of the things that I'd like to do for Ward 5 is to create a Ward 5 team. We have a ton of seniors with experience, a ton of youth in the community who want to do this experience. We can put them on a team together. They can do outreach in all our city's languages. We live in a very diverse city, and we could, and it's just a way to to get everybody involved in the process. And then also, we need to hold regular meetings in Ward 5 in every part of the ward. Not every part of it is being serviced right now. We can do one in Pine Hill, do one in Precinct 2 and 3 in downtown, and have regular meeting spots so people know exactly where to find me. That's really what I want to do. And then lastly is, again, just really doing our best to involve everybody, no matter what language they speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cinda, and I'm running for Ward 6 City Councilor. So I spent over half of a decade doing constituent services, so I know the value of having good working relationships with different types of departments. And I grew up as somebody who didn't know that our elected officials that are there to help us. So I know exactly what it feels like to not have a voice in government, and I will ensure that every single voice is heard and their concerns are going to be centered. What's also important is that people don't know what they don't know. So we need to be more proactive on getting on the doors, letting people know that counselors are there to work for them. And I will ensure that, my cell phone number is on my website, it's on Facebook, it's on all of my campaign literature. So you can call me, text me, send me snail mail, that's also great. And I promise to make sure to always be accessible. Thanks.
How you doing? I'm Fred Hogan, I'm the Ward 6 City Councilor. Constituent service has been my main thing that I went after this year because I make it real important that a constituent can get a hold of me. I have not just answered every single phone call, but I've came to people's houses and handled some of the serious issues that we're having in Ward 6. Ward 6 is a very challenging ward. It's not one of the easiest wards in the city. We have flooding, we have crime, we have graffiti on walls, we have trash and litter, we have everything. And I listen to people. They call me, I come to their house, I walk their areas. I got called in a rainstorm 2 rainstorms ago. A guy's house is flooding. The basement, there's raw sewage coming into his house. He was shocked that his ward councilor came to his house, went down in his basement, and saw what was going on and called the water and sewer to get right out there. He was amazed by that there. And then all the residents' houses that I go to, I let them know that I work for you. The ward councilor works for you. And if anyone doesn't do that, they should be working the way we do in Ward 6. And we spread that information out there, that if you need something, you call me. My phone number is 781-244-7921. Tonight, and the next couple of nights, there's going to be heavy rain in Ward 6. I'm working till 7 a.m. I will be up all night. You can call me tonight, and you know I will answer your call, and I will make things happen. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexis Reynoso. I'm running for Ward 7 Council. Before I keep going, I'd like to extend my condolence to George Mengitea, too, as he lost his father today. I'm mostly running because I'm trying to help the city in whatever way possible. Some of the candidates here mentioned communication. I think for the incumbents, many presidents do not know who you are. And I think the city overall is doing a better job lately. Like, things are changing in communications. We no longer watch TV and other things. They are using now Facebook and the social media to communicate stuff, and that's very important. But we have to, just as Marvin said, incorporate this area of the population that are not involved. Like, they know there's somebody that is supposed to represent them, but they don't know who that is. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know how to get in touch with them. So I think communication is going to be a big part of the city of Lynn moving forward. I'm running for Ward 7. I hope to help the city improve and get this area of the population more involved in part of the overall growth of the city. Thank you.
How you doing? I'm John J. Walsh. I'm the current Ward 7 councilor. Constituent services, I think if you're a ward councilor, it's really the issue that you deal with every day. Even before I was elected, I was out doing constituent services. I didn't even know I was doing it, plowing streets. People would call my neighborhood, to get a hold of me. And I mean, my cell phone is on everything too. I mean, if you go on the city website, it's my cell phone. If you go on any literature I have, it's my cell phone. I've lived there my whole life. It's something that I really, really pride myself on. I think when people call, I'm out there plowing. I make sure that we go out there and address the issues myself. Trying to have the departments do it, and they get overwhelmed sometimes. It's difficult, and I think all of us have that same feeling and trying to bridge that gap between the services and what you can do. And as a councilor, you're out there doing it. And I know there's a lot of people here that are. And I'm no exception to that. And I'm the guy guy. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. That's what I like to tell people. If there's an issue, then you call. I'm the guy that's coming there usually. I've had meetings in the ward. I've been involved in get out the vote efforts. I've pounded on doors for people to get to know everybody. I've been involved with different community groups when I was working for the GE, and I think it's important. I think you understand that the diversity in the city, and it's important to be able to reach out to those people. Thank you.
Thank you all for those responses. And we move on to question number 2. The city as a whole is very diverse. How do you plan to include all cultures in the decision-making process for your ward now and in the future?
I promise to include everybody. This city is very diverse, and it's one of the best parts of the city. You have every race, you have every religion, you have every culture in the city of Lynn. I love the fact that the Greek Festival goes on every year, and the Italian American Club throws a party every year, and a number of the clubs around do that as well. And when you go to these, you don't just see Italians or Greeks or the like at their own party. They are filled with every race and creed, interacting and having a great time. I coached a lot. I coached baseball, softball, and hockey. And as time went on in the city, you notice that every race and creed is now in these programs. And they're interacting, and the parents and the children are all having a great time. I think it's something that happens. I don't think it's something that you make a process for. And I'm proud to say that I'm in this city, and I've been part of these programs, and everybody is included in these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. For years, I've always said Lynn is probably the most diverse city in America, and I'm so proud of that. My ward, from the ocean to Buchanan Bridge, probably has more diversity in it than any other part of the city, whether it be financial diversity, whether it be the gay community that lives there, whether it be the Italian or the Greeks or the Germans or the Latinos or the blacks. It doesn't matter. My neighborhood has always been that way. I went to Easton Junior High, which was an extremely diverse school. I've got to get to know people, and to me it doesn't matter about the color of your skin or your nationality. And every time we try to do something in the city, we try to include anybody and everybody that lives there. The Lynn City Council in the last 3 years has a Spanish-speaking person in it. That was one of our goals, to make sure so that the Latino community could come in and communicate if they had an issue or a problem or anything. All the councilors are always attending different functions throughout the year. We have so many diverse groups that come in and work with us, and we financially support them, physically support them. We give them whatever needs they may need. And even the new people that are coming into the city, we try to work with them as well and make everyone feel safe and comfortable. Thank you.
Wait, did we skip you?
Starts that way.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rich Calucci. I live in a diverse ward, too. I have a lot of friends. I grew up in Ward 4 my whole life. I have a lot of friends that are Spanish, black. I'm friends with them, I take care of them, and I do what I can for them. And I can attest to that, and you can attest to that, the people that are watching. Thank you.
So diversity is a huge issue for the city of Lynn. And I believe that the city is very diverse, but when you look at the services that are provided, we're not doing enough to provide for all the different languages that we have in this city. For example, the city council meetings, I think that we should have translation services available at those meetings, every meeting, because then all citizens would feel more welcome at these meetings. We also need to look into our schools and make sure that we have more diverse teachers. We need more people of color who are teaching our children. And we need to start really looking into the hiring practices at City Hall, because if you walk through City Hall, you see that it's predominantly white. It's not predominantly people of color, and we need to do more to fix that. And in order to do that, we really need to look at putting more people of color on these committees when they are doing the hiring process. It's very important that there are more diverse police officers, and in every single department we need more diversity, because 20 years ago Lynn is not what it used to be. I've lived in Lynn over 20 years and it's changed dramatically, and the city leadership needs to be reflective of that. Thank you.
Hi. Ward 5 is also a very diverse ward. We have all different nationalities, cultures. It's actually very educational also. Get to go to all the different, whether it's a Latino festival, like you said, the Greek festival, Cambodian. It's actually educational for everyone too, just to learn the customs with everyone, how they celebrate their different holidays from ours. My own family is diverse. My sister-in-law, my nieces, nephews, they're all African American. But to me, they're not. They're just my family. It doesn't matter. I brought my kids up. It doesn't matter your color, your religion, or anything. It's called respect. We respect each other. It doesn't matter who you are or what color your skin is. And people need to remember that. Diversity is also gender. I'm the only female counselor on the whole city council. We also just hired a new female treasurer who is the 5th female department head to serve in the history of Lynn. So we've done a lot with the city, and I think it's a great thing, the diversity we have there. And I continue to support it. I love going to all the different festivals and learning more about everyone's culture. Thank you.
Ward 5 undoubtedly is incredibly diverse. You knock these buildings, and on one floor, everybody could speak 20 different languages. And the common theme I've noticed is that they don't feel comfortable approaching City Hall. We have to remember that a lot of the immigrants that have moved to Lynn are coming from war-torn countries where politics and politicians is just something that you don't do. And we're not being welcoming enough. I love what Natasha said. We definitely need to look into the hiring practices of City Hall. We need to make it a more welcoming and reflective place for our city. And it also touches back on what I said about us as people who want to serve on council. We should look into having staff like a Ward 5 team. I can communicate in 4 languages, and I'm very happy and proud of that. But guess what? We have a ton of people in the community who want to get involved, who can speak these languages. Bring them into the fold. Let's reach out to these communities. Let's let them know that they're loved. Let's let them know that we work for them. We would be so upset if we went to a restaurant and the waiter was only taking care of a few tables and you were paying for a service. It's the same concept. We're paying for a service. They're paying for a service. Let's meet them where they're at. Let's take the extra effort to translate and to bring diverse staff and people to reach out to them.
I think the first thing that we need to address is the fact that we have a lot of political apathy that's going on within our city. When I knock on doors, people are excited. They're like, no one has ever knocked on my door before. And for the first time, they feel seen, they feel heard, they finally feel like there's somebody that is representative of them, that is reaching out to them to talk about government. They didn't even know that they had a voice in government to begin with. That is the first thing that we need to address. And also, I also feel like we need to address that within all of our hiring departments, and even on our city council, you cannot have a government that is for and by the people if it is not represented by all of the people. Because what that means is that there are so many voices, so many lived experiences that are being left out of the decision-making table. So first, we need to address political apathy. Let our community know that they matter. We make it accessible in all language for all communities so that they all know that they belong here and that this is theirs too. That is the only way we can ensure that we are hearing all voices from all communities to ensure that all diverse populations, marginalized populations, are being heard and centered in the city of Lynn. Thank you.
Diversity. Ward 6, LaGrange Terrace, off of Shepherd Street, the Hogans. The Hogans are diversity. The Hogans family is mixed up of every nationality you can think of. All right? Fred Hogan is diversity. Fred Hogan lived on LaGrange Terrace his whole life. He played basketball in Marion Gardens. He went to Washington Community School. He went to Breed Middle School. He went to Lynn Classical on the Commons. I care about Lynn. I care about diversity. Right now, I'm representing people in Ward 6 in my neighborhood that are so proud that I can represent them. They're like, Fred, you out there are representing us, and it makes us so proud. I have an African family at the corner of us. They're so happy. I have a Puerto Rican woman that lives next door to me. She's so happy. I have Puerto Rican people on the other side. They're so happy. I have my grandkids. My granddaughter, Puerto Rican. My other granddaughter, Dominican. All right? I got my whole family that is mixed and all diverse. But I'll tell you what, some of these candidates are right. We need more diversity in the city, and we need to reflect what our city looks like. But guess what? As you look at me and you say, oh, he's just another white guy up there running for Ward 6. Well, guess what? I'm diverse, and I care about the people in Lynn, and I care about the diversity in Lynn, no matter what color I am. Thank you.
Hi again. In terms of diversity in people, the thing with that, the main thing is we're usually afraid of what we don't know. And as an immigrant myself, every group tends to go and look for their own kind. And that's the bridge that we have to create. How do we get this group to start sharing moments and situations with this group so we can, from the base, 'cause I don't think leadership can do a lot and try to bring diversity to the government, but there needs to be a situation where the base of the population get mixed each other. I used to work for GE for many years and as a machinist. So there's Greek guys, there's white people like Americans, there's a few Spanish people, blacks. There's a little bit of everything, and we all get along because we got to know each other. And that's the part that I think we have to put some focus. How do we get these communities to start knowing each other? And as Fred and the lady here said, we need to get more involved with the community, get some people that represent them in the city. As well, we can work with the community organizations and the nonprofit to be like a extended hand, because the city does not have other resources for this. So it's not wrong to ask for the community organizations that get involved with the city.
So it's important with diversity here. I think everybody agrees. I think one of the most important things we can do is listen. You know, if you're going to different community groups and you're going to different events like I have, I was the vice president of Local 201. I'm glad Alexis brought this up. When I started at General Electric Company, it was mostly white people. It was all, you know, that's what people used to say. Oh, that's where everybody goes that works there, they're white, right? As we were there and more people were being hired, the emphasis was put on, when the 400 people that were hired in the last 2 years was about diversity. We brought them to Lynn Tech. I can't think of a more diverse school. I just can't. I mean, I went to Lynn Tech, the school with everybody, you name it. And I'll tell you, GE has hired people out of the Lynn Tech program. They hired a female, one of the first people that were out of that program, and I don't even know, probably 30 years. They weren't even talking to the school. And it's important to be reflective of that. I think that that's something that everyone here in this table is going to agree on. But how do you show what you've done? You know, that's the thing you want to be looking at. And I think that I have a record with that. Thank you.
Thank you all for those responses. Oh, that's 2 days in a row I did that.
Thank you, McCullough. Yes, diversity is very important. My family, we do have minorities in my family, and I'm proud of that. And like Jay, I went to Lynn English back in the 70s, and there were very few minorities at that time. And Lynn has changed quite a bit, and for the good. And I think we've heard tonight the importance of hiring minorities. As Darren Sear mentioned, we've hired the city council a Latino that speaks fluent Spanish. Civil service still implements affirmative action for police and fire. I think what we need to do is reach out to the community in a way that we can let these diverse cultures know that there are opportunities. And that's the great thing about living in Lynn and living in this country. There are great opportunities. I've coached baseball 15 years. I've coached Pop Warner football. Many of the rosters were minorities, so I've worked with, I have friends and family, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I really can't add much more than what was said tonight, and it's nice to hear it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for those responses. I got it right this time. All right, we move on to question number 3. So what are the top complaints you've heard from residents during the campaign, and how do you plan on addressing them? Stop, Darren.
Thank you. Mostly condition of roads, sidewalks, trees that need to be trimmed. There is starting to, people are starting to see an influx of gang activity throughout the city. People are asking me, what's the city council doing about that? And I say to them, we've hired, or are in the process of hiring 10 more police officers. We've hired 9 in the last year, so that's going to be a total of 19. The gang unit is active. We're working with outreach programs in the city. I've had over 12 miles of roadways paved, hot top, since I've become a councilor. I've had close to $500,000 in sidewalks to be repaved. Constantly on the phone with the DPW, getting the trees trimmed, working on our neighborhood parks. It's kind of, you know, when you knock on someone's door and the issue that's affecting them is affecting them in a lot of ways, they're the only ones that's being affected by it. So it's quality of life issues, sidewalks, streets, trees. In Ward 3, I don't hear as much about education, mostly because we just built a brand-new middle school over there. Thank you.
Hi. Like the same thing that Darren was says, it's, you know, constituents, the trees, sidewalks, paving the streets. And I try to follow up with all these things. I call them back, I get it done. I'm very responsive, and people can attest to that. Thank you.
What I hear a lot from voters is the complaints are mostly about the streets, especially when it snows. A lot of streets are not plowed on time, and a lot of people have to go to work. I've heard complaints when it snows about people don't have places to park, and they have to park at the schools, and then in the morning they have to move their cars very early, and some people have little kids. So I've heard a lot of complaints about noise as well. People are complaining about all kinds of things. So a lot of the times they also complain, and I ask them, well, do you vote? And it depends, because a lot of people are telling me, they're like, no, I don't vote. I don't vote because I don't feel like my vote will matter. And that's not good. So we need to make sure that people are going out to vote so that they know that their voice does matter. Because if you don't vote, then you're voiceless. So I definitely tell people, please vote, register to vote, and then, you know, you can get whatever services you need. Other than that, it's very hard. But those are the top complaints. People complain about the crime rate. There's so much crime going on. And I have 4 kids, and I really don't want anything to happen to anybody. And the crime needs to be addressed right away. Like, we need to make sure that there's less crime. And in order to do that, one of the things we could do is do a neighborhood watch and really, like, watch out for each other, because neighbors need to know everybody. You should know your neighbors and be able to communicate when you see things that are not happening properly.
Hi. Biggest complaints I have in Ward 5 is parking. There is no parking. Commercial vehicles being parked on the street. That is another big complaint, because the commercial vehicles are taking up 2 spots. Let's see, I gotta put my glasses on to see. Handicap ramps, wintertime, they're not being shoveled. We need, we'll call the DPW, I've gone down, people have gone down and shoveled out the ramps, because when they're plowing the streets, they're still out plowing, the ramps get plowed in, and we have to get those shoveled right away. People, even in wheelchairs, still go out in the winter, they're traveling through the city. That is my big complaint, especially with the elderly. is, another one is crosswalks. People are not slowing down at the crosswalks. Down on Pleasant Street, I have major problems with the elderly trying to cross the street. They speed down. Someone's going to get killed one of these days. I hate to say it, but it's a big problem down there. Trash, abandoned properties, overgrown grass, crosswalks, rodents. That's a big problem. A lot of people, it's that time of the year again, the rodents coming back out. People, please do not feed the birds, the ducks, whatever is in the area, please do not throw the bread out. This is attracting the rodents even more, and we do have a major problem right now. Thank you.
The top 3 complaints I get out at the doors are, 1, people feeling that they're not being served. They don't even know who to go to if they have an issue. And that, again, I'm going to keep hammering this, and especially for the incumbents, we should probably get staff. When you call most offices, they have people on hand to help them answer phone calls, do things like address safety concerns, right? We're having difficulties fully funding our police force. It's going to be a all hands-on-deck situation. We need some actual leadership here. So that's one of the complaints. Transparency is another one. A lot of people feel like they don't know what's going on in the city, especially with their finances. They're asking where their money's going. People are like, we're in debt? Nobody knew. It's almost like they woke up one day and they're like, where's our money? We need to be a little bit more transparent. That's something I will absolutely address as councilor by doing monthly rotating meetings in every part of the ward. I give out my cell phone number. I'm accessible. I speak different languages, and I do my outreach in different languages, and I think that sets me apart here. And lastly, it's the lack of affordability. Everybody's feeling the pinch, whether you rent or own a home. The rents are sky high. They've gone up 27% in the past 3 years. And if you're a property owner, your property taxes are going up, and you're getting hit with a trash fee, which goes, again, back to the transparency thing. People felt like that got snuck up on them, and I don't think they're wrong about that. So I think those are the 3 complaints: city services, a lack of transparency, and a complete lack of affordability. People are scared that they are going to get pushed out like people did in Cambridge, Somerville, and all these areas.
The top 3 issues that I hear often are issues regarding their homes getting flooded. And it's not just, it's like Fred Hogan said, there's raw sewage that's there. And when they call certain departments, they're not feeling heard or seen. Their lived experience of having actual sewage in their basement isn't being validated. And, you know, there's a lack of accountability that comes with that. There's a lack of accessibility and transparency of what's going on. They may call somebody shows up, and they don't communicate of what's going on, and there's no real concrete proactive solutions. You know, I want to ensure that Westland residents don't have to suffer any substantial financial loss because of these storms. Another issue that comes up a lot is schools. You know, I met a woman the other day who her biggest concern was that our kids don't have access to quality education. Our kids are our future, and it shouldn't just be on the city council or the budget. It needs to be on all of us. We all need to advocate for our future, for our youth to have access to quality education. And the next thing that I hear is housing insecurity. As somebody who got into government because of housing insecurity, you know, I understand that our city is in a deficit, but what we need, yes, we do need development, but we need equitable economic development. We need inclusionary zoning. We need to put our residents first. We need to validate them, let them know that they have a voice in government and that we are going to be there to work for them and ensure that we are putting our residents first who have invested so many years of their family in here. Thank you.
Like diversity, Ward 6 is broken up into many different parts. First thing I did as councilor is I had a community meeting in each section of the ward, because what happens in Pine Hill isn't happening down by St. Michael's Hall. What's happening in St. Michael's Hall isn't happening at Marion Gardens. What's happening at Marion Gardens isn't happening at River Street. So what I did is I had a community meeting in each of those sections so I could hear their issues for each of their section. And of course, out of all the topics, the biggest thing was flooding. I work at the wastewater treatment plant. When it rains, everything comes to me at my job. Tonight I work 11 to 7. That's my shift. I will be on all night. We turn on the pumps. We do all that. We send the water out to the ocean. We have the CSO project coming up. It's going to separate the sewage and the water. The rainwater will go out straight out to the ocean. The sewage will come straight to us. We're getting a lot of work done in the Westland area where it should have started 20 years ago. They started in Eastland instead of Westland. We're getting a pump station at the corner of McManus Field, right on Commercial Street. That's huge, because that's going to pump the water straight to us at the wastewater plant. With doing that there, I found a land swap, and I found another area, because when you take public land, you have to get another area to find. So behind River Street, we found another park, which is going to be an open space park. Now, the River Street people had a problem with flooding, and they had a problem with a building that was put in their neighborhood that caused multiple problems. I started out and helped those people right away, work between the businesses and the residents right away. Now, Pine Hill has other issues. They have tree issues, they have school issues. The school had issues up there, and we addressed all those there. So that was the thing I wanted to do, is just help everybody on every section. Thank you.
Just like any other ward here, we get the typical conditions on the street walk, the pothole on the street maintenance, stuff like that. One thing I got from the homeowners is, as Marvin presented, the trash feed. They did not like that. I don't think it was well communicated. And I know it was to try to cut the deficit that we had for the last few years. But at the same time, the homeowners especially, they feel like they're paying more for taxes, they're paying the trash feed, and like they don't see the improvement in cases like when there's no removal and things like that. They see they don't consider it's a good service they're getting, and on the other hand, they're still getting taxed. One thing that I got from one lady in Covering Cycle was she kept asking me, what are you going to do for our kids? And she was complaining about the conditions of the parks and not having like programs for the kids to go. So I'm not fully sure if the city council has to handle like after school programs and stuff like that. But with or without that, I think we ought to, as a city, along with community organizations, to try to find options for the kids to go after school and get the parks and the recreation areas in better conditions. I'm from a bad neighborhood in Dominican Republic, and my way out of drugs and gangs, whatever, was basketball. But outside of the YMCA, you can only play basketball in the summer. So if we find ways for kids to find a place to recreate, that would be very good.
I think the biggest issue that I hear is going to be with infrastructure. As I heard from everybody here, it's a huge issue. Some things are intertwined, I'll say that. You know, housing, I'm glad it was brought up, you know. I think when you look at parking problems that are in the city, a lot of it's because people have to live, 6 people in one house because they can't afford the rent. It's a huge problem. So I think a lot of these things are connected. A lot of them tumble down into other issues. I think a lot of what I've seen too at the parks, be like to have improvements. I'll tell you right now, my daughter came home from Barry Park, and I'll be the first one to tell you all this. She come home, wrote me a letter, says she can't go to the park. It hurts. You're the counselor, right? You're the guy that's there supposed to be making it happen, right? You get to this point, you think you can help with some of those things, and it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I explained to my 9-year-old daughter that I'm doing everything I can to have the park fixed. And I think any father out there, anybody in this room, would want to do anything they could to fix that, especially me. I want to take my truck down there and go fix it myself is what I want to do, It's difficult. It's really a difficult situation. I think sometimes as councils, we have to provide solutions to these problems. It's easy to kind of sit here and bring up problems and things you have going on, but we have to provide solutions to them. And it's difficult. Trash fee, I tell you, that was terrible. Has to be something done. We want services, we have to be able to pay for those. And I think if you're an elected official here, being able to be on that and have to make those decisions and wear them on your sleeve is a tough thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Top complaints, concerns are, we heard pretty much tonight, several areas, and Lynn is a city with 170 miles of roadway. We received Chapter 90 funding from the state that each community throughout the Commonwealth receives. I work for the Commonwealth of Mass. Lynn is not alone with their problems. Lynn does a very good job, as Councilor Walsh mentioned. As a councilor, that's our job, to find solutions, to find remedies. And I think I do a very good job at that. I hear from a lot of residents about trees, sidewalks, roadways, and many of those have been done, and if they're not done, they will be done. Public safety is very important. As Councilor Seer mentioned, we just hired 10 police officers. We have 10 more to go. 20 firefighters were hired recently. Gowdy Park, thanks to my colleagues, we passed a $150,000 bond to fix Gowdy Park. It's going out to bid, and it's soon to be remedied there. That's a plus for our neighborhood in that area. We're working hard, and we're going to continue to find remedies and solutions to our problems to have a better quality of life for all the residents in Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, the number one priority of a ward councilor are the complaints in their ward. I had a complaint, gentleman called me, you may have seen an article in the Lynn item in regard to Sylvia Street. Sylvia Street is completely dilapidated, as you can see, and they've been requesting the street be paved for over 3 years. I know there are a lot of streets, and I know that the Chapter 90 funding is insufficient. It's $1.5 million. But when you write a letter to your counselor and you explain to them that not only is your street dilapidated, but your wife is in a wheelchair and she can't come out of her house and go down into the driveway, I mean, those are the kind of things that need to be addressed. When you get a letter from your city councilor and it says that I put in a request for the street to be paved, but it's not on the high priority list, I mean, the high priority list needs to be addressed. It needs to be changed. And then when you call the counselor and he says it's going to be done, and he sends you a letter that says it's going to be done, and then he calls you and tells you, oh, I'm sorry, my secretary made a mistake, and it's not going to be done.
It's going to be done.
And it wasn't done. Chapter 90 money and Chapter 70 money need to be addressed. They're both state monies that we get. Unfortunately, they've been cut over the last 10 years because they were tied into the income tax rate, and the income tax rate dropped dramatically 10 years ago from about 5.8% to 5.1%, and we lost about $1 billion.
All right. Well, we move on to question number 4. All right, this question is a viewer-submitted question. It comes from KH in Ward 7. Although this question was directly towards Ward 7, but we ask all the candidates to chime in and share their thoughts too in their respective wards. So, over the last couple of years, we have had shootings and killings in our ward. What would you do to fix that problem? We'll start off.
Well, you cannot legislate morality. You know, you can have more police. You can have, 10, 20 more police on the street. If people would be criminals, they're criminals. You can't legislate morals, unfortunately. But it's a hard issue. It's a hard question, and there's no real easy answer to it. So I just say this: the people that are listening, do the right thing, and we'll go get in trouble. Thank you.
Crime is a very serious problem. So what I would say to combat that, we need to have more neighborhood watches. So we need to know our neighbors, in that way we'll be able to watch out for each other. I also believe that we should have programs to come into the schools as young as kindergarten to teach kids like bullying is wrong, and so they know that what crime looks like, and so that they are taught early that crime is not the way, as well as drugs, because the earlier you learn, the better off we will be. We need to really make sure that we have enough police officers, and the police officers need to also be diverse, because our kids need to feel comfortable talking to the police officers. We want our children to feel safe in the neighborhood. I don't like turning on the news when I hear all this terrible stuff happens on the news every day. It's very sad. We need more gun control. I am completely against gun violence, any type of violence at all. We need to really advocate and teach these children that, like now, social media, everything is out there for these kids when they have their cell phones, and we need to know, it starts at home, and we need to teach our kids that crime is not the best answer. Preach love.
Yes, there have been a lot of recent incidents, violent crimes in the city lately, and that's just a reminder that public safety is the #1 important issue in the city. I still do monthly meetings. It's not just Friends of Ward 5. I'm all through Ward 5. We meet with police officers. We just have to be aware of what's going on in our neighborhoods. I know that I had an incident last night in Ward 5, another one in the same area in the vicinity. Neighbors called me. I actually, before I came here, I just spoke to one of them, called the police. They're aware of what's going on in their neighborhood. You can have a crime watch, but residents, with their hours nowadays, nobody's around. Each individual household kind of looks out, and like the police said, call them. They may have another call in front of them. They will get to it, but please call them. Don't put it on the back burner. Don't call the counselor first. Don't call your neighbor and say, oh, someone's doing something out front. Please call the police first. Then call us. We will sit down with them, see what we can do. We've had the graffiti downtown Lynn on all the murals. We've had meetings down here. We have to be aware of our surroundings. Education starts at home for some of these kids. These kids just don't wake up and say, I'm going outside to do something. It starts at home. We need to educate our children on what is right and what is wrong.
You know, I recently started opening up about this, but a few years back, I myself was shot at while leaving a party. A few friends of mine as well have witnessed it throughout the city, so this isn't new. We're seeing an uptick right now, and I think it's really because of a lack we're seeing the manifestation of years of neglect. A lot of parents working 2 jobs don't have time to be at home with their kids. A lot of people just don't even have the resources to deal with their trauma. There's a lot of people in the city who are dealing with stuff that they don't have any outlet to. And sometimes they turn to drugs, sometimes they turn to violence. A lot of our young men don't know how to express themselves. This is where we need some real leadership from our council. We need y'all to step up and actually bring everybody a seat at the table. You know, because like Diana said, which is true, it starts at home, but I don't think it's about educating our kids or anything like that. That's part of it. It's about making people feel loved, making them feel welcome, giving them the resources they need to deal with their issues. And the only way we're going to do that is if we're an actual community and if we're actually reaching out to everybody. And I think on the other side that we can do, you know, during the day, I work as a caseworker for the federal government. There's a lot of grants available that we're not tapping into. We could be working with Antonio and Lysoa, getting them more funding, getting them more grants, while also having these community discussions, because it's going to take all of us together to heal as a city. Thank you.
The first thing that I'd like to say is that thoughts and prayers are not enough anymore. What we need is proactive leadership from everyone in our community. And I think the first thing that needs to happen is to have a community discussion with people who are directly affected by these violences. We need to address social emotional learning. How do we address going through negative emotion? Are we providing enough tools and resources for our youth to understand these negative emotions when they get rejected, when they are struggling to process their own emotions? Do we have enough resources for them? We need to have a proactive community meeting so that we know the best way to help out everybody in Lynn that is suffering. And that needs to be something that is more consistent. We need something that is more proactive and involving the community that is directly affected. Thank you.
This is a subject that hits home for me. I was at Warren Street Park when there was an incident. I got shot at. I was there when a kid was murdered. It's a very powerful thing for me because I live in that neighborhood where people witnessed that. Over 100 and something people witnessed that. We had people going through some serious stuff in that neighborhood, including myself. You know, I've been working on the violence in Lynn for 6 years with the Stop the Violence Lynn Committee, with Antonio from Lysoa. We're about being proactive, not reactive. All right, so every time there's a shooting, people get reactive. But we've been trying to do stuff in this city for 6 years. We've been reaching out to people for things to try to do this. And it does start with the youth and educating the youth and teaching them that violence isn't normal. It's not normal. We're not supposed to live in a city that is filled with violence. It makes me sick every day when I open the newspaper or get a text that someone's being shot at or someone's being stabbed. Because there's 2 people that are affected by this. Both families are affected by violence. It's the shooters and the ones getting shot. I coached sports all my life, 25 years. I had kids that I was coaching, either doing the shooting or being shot. So what I did, I said I'm going to get involved. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to go out there and do it. And guess what? If you know someone that's in a gang or doing something wrong, you can speak to them, because I do it. Antonio does it. We get out there, and we're not reactive, we're proactive. So understand that. Get involved in your city. If you're tired of the violence, get involved and make it happen.
I will say three things: education, drugs, and poverty. If we find a way to target this issue, as a consequence, crime will diminish. It's okay to hire more police officers. It's always good for many reasons. But if you don't go to the root of the problem, you're never going to solve the problem. And as time goes, you're just going to have to hire more police officers, and so. And I don't think that's the way we're going to go. If you see any statistics, crime is tied to drugs and poverty. And why are people stay in poverty? Education has a lot to do with that. As I mentioned earlier, if we find a way for kids to be somewhere learning a skill, learning a trade, playing a sport or anything, they don't have time to be outside being exposed to gangs and drugs. So it's important that we hire police, and it's important that we do all these reaction measurements. But we have to do a lot of prevention, just like just mentioned. So, and as people mentioned here, it's important, education begins at home. And nobody's gonna, politicians, police officers, they're not gonna teach your kids to do right. But I think the schools and us as well, we have to communicate not only to the students, it has to go to the parents as well. Because just like Marvin said, some of them work 2 jobs and it's just hard. So I think education, target poverty, and drugs. Drugs are a big issue for the city.
As everyone was talking, I was thinking, and I remember the community police officers. I'm surprised nobody brought that up. You talk about prevention and whether or not we're going to actually be able to stop the crime, you know. When I grew up, it was probably mostly Asian gangs. I remember that was the big thing in the city at the time, you know. And I remember in that being out on Mara Street in a few places and hanging out, and the big impact that I saw, at least, and I know times have changed, but I think some of the things are the same. The community police officers would come up on bikes, they'd come in, they would talk to the kids, you know, and they would gain respect with them. And I think that that's something that, you know, they may not be getting at home. You know, I think we'd said it starts at home. It's a multifaceted thing, you know. Some of the crimes that have been happening lately, these aren't children, they're not kids. A lot of them, they seem like they're grown adults. People have jobs, good paying jobs. You know, and you don't know the story behind it all, you know. We don't either as counselors. Sometimes we find out a couple years down the road. We don't know all of the answers to it. But I can think of community policing, and I'd love to advocate for the funding for that. I remember Officer Dan, the bike man. I don't know if anyone else remembers him. I remember it still sticks in my head. You know, he'd show up and say, guys, what's going on? You know, I heard this happen or that happened. And we respected him. And I think that that's a huge thing. And I'd like to see that come back. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. You actually stole my thunder. I was going to mention that. I'll tell a story. Our community liaison officer on a bike, I can recall getting a phone call from a woman who kept hearing noises. And I had speed dial our community liaison officer on a bike, and he said, Wayne, I'm on it. He went and checked it. And he'd text me back and he'd say, Wayne, it was some raccoons stirring the cans. So that was a good ending. The violence that recently occurred in Ward 7 was horrible. We can all agree on that. And it needs to stop. And I commend Councilor Hogan for his efforts the last 6 years with Stop the Violence, an educational reach out to troubled youth, and this is something we need to further advance. We need, I recall years ago doing youth groups, and they were Cambodian gang members, and it was pretty horrifying, the stories they would tell me. And they didn't want to be in those gangs, and they wanted out, but they felt trapped. And there has to be more programs and education, and we need better policing. And the community liaison officers need to come back, and I think we'll be in good shape if that happens. Thank you.
This issue doesn't really affect Ward 1 as much as it does the rest of the city, but I am an attorney, and I work in the Lynn District Court. I do public defense work for 30 years, and I have seen gang violence and drug issues are prevalent well within the city. Antonio is a great guy. I've worked with Antonio. I've worked with Roker, with a lot of my clients, getting them back on the straight and narrow, giving them the ability to go out and get jobs and to get drug treatment and what have you, and it helps. But the gangs are the major thing. They're killing each other, and other innocent people are sometimes shot being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Again, it comes down to funding. We need more funding for the police. We need to put more officers on in all capacities, in the schools, liaison officers. I have a lot of friends who are police officers. They are overworked. They're on overtime. They can't do the job with the number of police officers that they have. We need more. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody really has the answer to fix the problem. And we all have an opinion, and I respect all the opinions. When I first got on the council, as I said earlier, we had a very serious crime problem in my ward. A lot of gangs, there were a lot of issues, and the bike patrols weren't available at the time. They had ended that because that was all done with a federal grant. But the problem was so serious in the neighborhood that we didn't start a crime watch. We just started, in a way it was a crime watch, but we didn't start a controlled crime watch. We just asked people to keep their lights on and put cameras on their house. And anytime they saw anything, they didn't have to leave their name. Just call the police department and say what was going on. A lot of the kids, or a lot of the gang members at that time, they were able to arrest a lot of them, whether it be on drug charges, whether it was because they were assaulting people. And a lot of them wound up doing federal time. And the problem today is a lot of those guys are getting out right now. It's not just the gangs that's what's going on. It's also the unaccompanied young kids that are coming into our school system that are put in foster homes. When they turn 17, they're able to sign themselves out. And when they're able to sign themselves out, they're living back out on the street, and they have to survive. So they're out there panhandling, they're out there doing drugs, they're out there drug dealing. So as a community, we all got to work together, and we got to provide an environment for these people. And I know my time is up. I'm sorry.
All right. We are now on to our fifth question. So substance abuse is an issue in all of your wards, and it's particularly concerning around parks and schools. As ward counselor, what steps will you take to help alleviate this problem?
Thank you for the question. So substance abuse, again, with the crime, same scenario. I really believe we need to have a campaign starting in kindergarten where someone comes in and explains to kids to stay away from drugs. I remember growing up and I would see the commercial and it was like, this is your brain on drugs, and it would be the eggs. So I'm sure other people remember that, and that's what kids need to see. We need some more education, and they need to know at a young age to stay away from drugs. Now, unfortunately, this does happen to families. So when someone is addicted to drugs, it impacts the entire family. So we need more support groups out there to help those families that are affected directly, and we just need more support out there for that, because I personally want to make sure that crime and drugs is eliminated in the city. And I know it won't be eliminated, but it can be less for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in the month of September alone, we had 29 overdoses in the city of Lynn. And believe it or not, that is a low count compared to from the other months. We have a major opioid problem in the city. It's not just our city, it's through the nation. But we need to take care of it here in our city. We do work with different groups throughout the city. Police department, they have agencies that they use to help people out. What we need to do is just get more information out there, because I'm finding families are asking how they can get help. They need support to help their victims that they have. So that's one thing we really need to look into more, is a family support group. We're just going to continue working with the community, working with everybody, and hopefully in the future, we're not going to eliminate the problem, but hopefully we can get the problem solved a little more and get some control over it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think in order to combat this, we really need to do a better job at outreach. And again, I'm going to keep hammering on this, incumbents. I think it's time to get staff and time to do regular rotating meetings in all parts of the wards that you represent, because people just don't know where to go, don't know the resources they can apply for. And then also, I think some folks in the community have a lot of great ideas. We should bring them to the table to help find the solutions. And I think, second, we can do a better job working with our federal delegation and our state delegation to secure more funds for programs to help people. And lastly, I think, one of the things I realized in Lynn, door knocking there's still a stigma. Even though, downtown in Ward 5, you could find needles everywhere. I walk downtown every night. I see needles all the time. Even though it's so present, there's still a stigma. And people still feel ashamed, and they still feel like this is something that they can't talk about. We need to do a better job. We need to step up. We need to do an actual educational program, and we need to get the community together on hand on this. That's the only way it's going to solve this.
I agree with everybody who notes that we need more funding to provide more resources so that we can do more outreach for our community in Lynn. Door knocking alone, I had this woman just cry in my arms because her brother and her loved ones were suffering from substance abuse. And there is a stigma that still exists, and Marvin's absolutely right on that. We need to humanize our community members, let them know that we're there for support, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get them onto a better path. Right? This is something that we can address coming together as a community, and if we work together with our state partnerships to get more funding, we can definitely help alleviate, provide more resources, and let people know that they're not alone in this and that they have us as a community.
Absolutely. On my street alone, I live on a small street off of Shepherd Street. I have two female houses that are rehab houses that they're occupied by all women that are rehabbing from the opioid situation. And I try to help them, and I try to help their house leaders get in contact with good people. One thing about Lynn, we have a lot of good resources and a lot of different organizations doing a lot of work to fight the opioid problem. And believe it or not, the Lynn police have been real good working with people who are addicted to drugs and stuff, instead of just treating them like third-class citizens. And I really would like to take a second to commend everyone that's working on the opioid problem in Lynn, because there's multiple organizations out there on the streets and doing it. As a councilor, I've got multiple calls about needles being on the ground, and we would have to get out there, and I would reach out to Councilor Field. He would come with his shops container, and we would clean it up just so people would be safe to be in a park, or like underneath a bridge. There was like someone dumped like 10 needles there, and it's affecting everyone. Even if you don't have a member of your family addicted to opioids, it affects everyone in the city, because everyone knows somebody that's either addicted to opioids, or a friend or a family that's addicted. And like I said, we just got to keep working with our city services and reach out to help and support those services. If they need help from me as a councilor, I'll help them in any way possible. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to something I mentioned earlier, and it's prevention. I think in order to break the cycle of drug addiction, we got to put a lot of resources on prevention, because it's okay to allocate resources for treatment and all these other steps that are very important. But if you're really serious about it, you got to cut off the cycle. That's the only way it has to work, and education and prevention is the key in getting that done. Just as I mentioned, everybody has somebody that either addicted, I got friends that die of overdose, and it's a very sad thing. But you can try to help somebody, but that person has to put their own will to get help. So that's very limited that what we can do other than offer options for treatment and stuff like that. But we have to help the young kids coming up. They don't get into the same circle of drugs and gang, because that's the only way that this is going to improve long term. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same, going around the same circle for years and years. And something has to change with the way we're attacking this issue.
I think if you live in the city of Lynn here long enough, I think, or any city really, I mean, you're affected by this. I think this is even at GE, we had a lot of people that were not just opioids, they were addicted to alcohol, sometimes worse than opioid addiction, if anyone's had, to deal with that. We would provide a resource to people. We were fortunate enough to have an EAP officer there. We would have them come. There was a program involved in it. I think a lot of it comes down to availability and space. I think if I remember back, Gloucester at one time had a great program, and they would go to the police station, and they would always find a bed for the people there. And I think, if we could achieve something like that here, it would help. It's a multifaceted issue. It's not one issue. People become addicted. Some people are just really proud to even admit they're addicted. I think that's a huge problem. I know so many people that were friends of mine, and they were the proudest people you met, and they just would never admit it. You could see it clear as day. And being able to get them to understand that it's okay to ask for help is a huge part of this. It's the first step in recovery. So I think as elected officials, if we could advocate for programs that help get people resources without the stigma, and then obviously going into the schools and trying to get resources. I was thinking about, this is your brain on drugs, I mean, I think of that, I'm an 80s kid, you think of that stuff. And it's scary. Got a 9-year-old daughter, and there's a lot of things in the world. I'm a pretty tough kid, I think, and I'm not too scared of too many things, but worried about my 9-year-old daughter growing up in the city and whether she's going to be affected by that. It's scary.
Drug use, like alcoholism, is an illness and a disease that needs to be treated just like anything else, like cancer, like any invasive illness. Society has to understand that these people need help. We have heard tonight from those of you that know that the federal government and the state government are offering more resources, more monies for programs to help these people, and that's a good thing. Councilor Walsh, you mentioned a treatment center, and there's many of them, and too often they're full. And that's unfortunate for those that need help, that are willing to get help, and they're unable to. So we really need to advocate as local officials, our state and federal government, to offer more monies and programs to help these people, just like we would with any other sickness or illness. And we also need strict law enforcement for those that deal drugs, that bring them into this city and are selling them to our children and young people. That's terrible. Okay, thank you.
As I said before, I do a lot of bar advocate work in the Lynn District Court, and I've represented thousands of addicts over my 30 years. Most of them, when I interview them and I ask them how they got addicted, tell me that they had an injury of some sort, and they ended up on some sort of oxycodone or painkiller medication, Percocets and the like. Oxys on the street, after they get addicted to these painkillers, oxys on the street are about $80 a piece. You can buy a bag of heroin for $9. You can do the math as to what happens. So they go from the oxys to the heroin. They end up as an addict in this cycle. They end up losing their job. They end up losing their home. They end up stealing things from their family. And they are disowned by just about everybody. Then they get into the state system and they try and go to a detox to get clean. They do an inpatient program and then a halfway house and then a job search. Sadly, in my 30 years of experience, those addicted to painkillers and then end up as heroin addicts, most of them relapse after a year or two. Many of them, as you've heard, overdose and die. The best advice I can give you as a parent or the like is don't allow, even my son had lung operation, he broke his arm, was on painkiller, was offered painkillers, and I told him to take the 800 Tylenol instead.
Thank you. This isn't just a Lynn problem, but it's a national problem. Lynn has well over 350 nonprofit groups and organizations throughout our city, and a lot of them are because of the drugs that are going on in the country. And we attract a lot of people from other communities that come here seeking help. And as Tom just said, a lot of these people relapse within a year or two of getting off the drugs. And the problem is that their system can't handle what they were doing when they went into a rehab. So, you know, I can't tell you how many friends of mine have lost their children. And it's such a heartbreaking epidemic that's going on in our country, and everybody's got to, you know, play their part. It's got to be on the federal level. They have to give more money to the states, and the states have to give more money to the city. City of Lynn, as Wayne said earlier, has over 100,000 people that are living here, and we have 300 and I believe 60-something nonprofit groups and organizations. And we keep attracting more and more people into our community from other communities because of all the services that we provide. So the federal government's got to do a better job of helping us, so does the state. Thank you.
You know, I had 4 close friends that died of drugs, and you know, I talked to them, and you know, I realized they cannot see but beyond what they're doing. They're addicted. You look at the girls on Union Street selling themselves. When they're 8 years old, they didn't say, I want to grow up and be a prostitute. So I'm familiar with this. I fund the Haven Project and Project Cope. I give people rides to meetings. And a little story for you. An Indian boy, for his manhood, had to climb up to the mountains in the Andes. He went to the top, and he seen a rattlesnake. And the rattlesnake said, pick me up. Put me under your coat. It's freezing up here, nothing to eat, I'll die. And the Indian boy said, no, you're a rattlesnake, you'll bite me. And the snake persuaded him. He picked him up, brought him in his coat, and he walked down the mountain with him. At the bottom of the mountain, he let him out. And the snake said, I told you I wouldn't bite you. And he waved goodbye, and he turned around. The snake slithered up behind him and bit him on the calf. And the Indian boy said, you told me you wouldn't bite me. And the snake said, you knew what I was when you picked me up. Same thing with drugs and alcohol.
Thank you all for those responses. And we have reached the end, the last question of the night. All right. What are your thoughts on how to bring in enough money for city services while not placing too much of a burden on residents and businesses via taxes and fees?
Taxes. That's a touchy subject. Nobody likes to pay taxes. As a homeowner, trying to pay my bills on my own, I get very nervous every time there's an increase. The good news is our tax rate has gone down. And as far as it's going to go down again next year. But on the flip side, property values have gone up. So it's making it look as if our taxes went up when they have not. So that's a burden on people. Our property values are going up, but it's still hurting people. We did hire a full-time CFO to oversee the long-term financial stability of the city. We're hoping what we can do is to get out of some of the debt we're in, working on different programs we're doing, and it's going to take one step at a time. Rome wasn't built overnight, and the city's not going to come out of our mess we're in right now overnight. It takes time.
I think one of the first things we really need to be doing is leveraging this development boom that's headed our way. I think I speak for many people that we were incredibly upset when the council approved a $2.5 million tax break with no community benefits, and all while our rents and property taxes are going up. We can't be just selling off our city without getting something back for the people who've already lived here, who pay to be served by us. Second, we can do a better job attracting businesses, right? Not to toot my own horn here, but I was actually one of the people that convinced One Mighty Mill to come here, right? I bugged them to come to Lynn. It's amazing. We got a commuter rail. We got a diverse community. People are going to love you. Lynn is already it. There's nowhere else to develop. We need to leverage our position here to the benefit of the people here. And then I think also we can do a better job with looking at absentee landlords. I see a lot of that in Ward 5. We can get revenue from them. And we can also try to figure out how we're going to get new industries into Lynn. And the only way we're going to do that is by being transparent. We put too much pressure on ourselves, I think, and I'm speaking for the addressing the incumbents. Sometimes you can put too much pressure on yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. Open up the conversation to the community. People have great ideas. We together can solve this problem. Thank you.
I love that. I love that last line of "we together can solve this problem," and you're absolutely right on that. I think one of the things that we can do and take advantage of is all of the marijuana dispensaries that are opening up. We have those host agreements, and they are giving back to our community. Another thing that is kind of personal for me that I go through all the time is that my brother has kids, so my niece and my nephew, my cousins, they all have birthday parties, and it's all outside of Lynn. We don't have a space in Lynn for us to give back to our local economy, right? There's no type of like Chuck E. Cheese or a space for them to give back to our local economy. So we need to do a better job of promoting our local, to promote Lynn. Lynn is a great spot, like, to develop. There's no other place. We have the waterfront, we have the woods, we have the beach, we have everything. Lynn needs to do a better job at promoting our spaces, and I think that we can start just by giving back to our local economy, investing in more commercial real estate and what we can place there, and inviting community into the conversation of what they would like to see that they would want to give back to their community. Thank you.
Tax is a great question. Knocking on doors, you meet an 85-year-old gentleman and his wife on a fixed income, and they're like, "Counselor, if my taxes go up, my mortgage goes up, and then it makes it hard for me to pay for medicine or to pay for something like that there." And in Ward 6, in my area, people are hurting when there's a tax rate or our houses go up. Yeah, our houses' values goes up, but when you're 85, you don't care that your house is worth so much. You care that the taxes are going up, and now everything's more expensive. So my thing is, Ward 6 is a great area, all right, commercial tax base. All right, attracting good businesses to Ward 6, because we need commercial tax base to help us. All right, I was one guy that was in favor of a storage facility on Blossom Street. I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and put my head out there for that storage facility because I knew it would be $700,000 a year in taxes for our city, not just Ward 6, but that could help somebody in the area with a tax base. We have to continue to do that. We have to continue to attract businesses and try to get these businesses. That did not pass the Zoning Board of Appeals. It was my first time being a part of politics and losing something that I believed in because I knew it would help people. But I'm going to continue to fight in Ward 6 to get good taxes here to help people that need it, because everyone cannot handle a tax increase or their house values going up. All right, so we have to continue doing that there. And yes, the marijuana facilities. No one understood what they were, but guess what? They are giving us a good host agreement. They are giving us taxes. When they open up, they're going to start helping us with police. Sorry about that. Ran out of time.
Nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes increase. Nobody likes to have a fee increase on their services. So I will start by trying to cut waste from the government. Little things like amount of salt that we spread in the street during the storm, so like that. Like, we can regulate certain things, and why isn't the city hall and institution from the government trying to move into more efficient measurements like solar panels and changing some of the equipment in the city, in the bathroom and stuff like that, that consume a lot of water. Some is little things but all together can save a lot of money. So before talking about cuts and increasing fees is where I look first. That's our saying, when you work as a machinist, measure twice, cut once. So I'll definitely be looking into those little details. And I think, as some Marvin and other candidates here mentioned, we have a lot of potential. The Linkway goes directly to Boston, goes to the airport. Why we don't have like somebody trying to get a hotel company to put a hotel on the Linkway and things like that, trying to bring more investment. But for this to happen, we have to also work on the city image. For many years, we all know the city image that the city has. We have to clean the city. We have to work on the drug problem. So this company and investor can feel comfortable bringing their monies and their capital into the city.
I think commercial real estate and trying to be proactive in attracting good-paying jobs and facilities that are going to pay good is something we got to be looking at too. The taxes are the taxes. I guess it takes a certain amount of money to run a city, and we're thinking back, I don't know who said it earlier, but some of the tax cuts that happened from the federal government, they trickle down over like 15 years, and our funding has been cut on a lot of these resources. And these are things that we have to become, more prudent with and try to figure ways out. I can think, I was trying to find out if Netco, when they were closing Revere, I remember calling over there saying, hey, what are you guys doing? We get space here in Lynn. Is it something? They were good union jobs, too. They were union employees. A lot of people lived in Lynn. Those jobs were lost. It's something that we can do a better job at, but I think it's important. The housing that's being built in the Lynnway is great, but I think you need that commercial tax revenue to really bring up the tax base, in trying to use some of that with community benefits with some of these people. I think that was mentioned too. That's important. Private partnerships, with the city and private people. Those are things that we need to be involved with. But the commercial tax base and attracting good jobs, I think we got the fluff. Why not get the peanut butter? I called the peanut butter people and they weren't willing to come yet. But there's something that we could do, on the ground level. Right?
Lynn is in a much better financial condition now. We've taken a lot of good steps, my colleagues and I and the new mayor. We're now on the right path financially. Lynn, however, is a cash-starved city. As a councilor, I feel it's important to leverage grants and funding that enables us not to raise our local taxes, but rather bring a form of tax relief. And how we do that is, I'm happy to say, I led the charge on bonding for LED lighting that you see around the city. Now, the money that we paid for that, it cost, before the LED lighting, it cost $1 million a year for the electricity. It uses 20% of what we previously used. That's $800,000 a year saving just in the LED. I've also led the charge to make Lynn a green community. And the city council just finished voting on the final criteria that enables us to become classified as a green community. Upon that designation, the city of Lynn will receive over $500,000 that will go right into our general funds to be used for energy efficient programs like boilers in a school, windows in a firehouse. These are things we as elected officials, we have to do. We have to seek ways to find financing, leveraging these funds, and I'll continue to seek these funds and grants that will ultimately bring tax relief to the Lynn residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Number one is the school budget. Chapter 70 funding is based on a formula that is over 20 years old. It's antiquated. It doesn't make sense in regard to the type of students and the type of special needs that the Lynn schools are dealing with. We need to address through the state legislature to get that formula changed and get more money to the less or the more needy cities such as Lynn. Second, the tax rate in Lynn on the commercial side is one of the highest in the entire state. That's why we can't encourage more businesses to come in and open in Lynn. I would suggest we have some sort of incentive where we lower the tax rate for the first 3 to 5 years when they come in, and I would also suggest that we lower the commercial tax rate across the board. You look downtown, you see a number of buildings that are all vacant, and there's nobody coming in. We need to expedite the projects that are going on. The waterfront has been proposed and trying to be developed now for, I believe, 20 years. The Beacon Chevrolet site has been vacant. If you look at Revere, you see along the Wonderland line, you see high-rises going up with luxury apartments and the like, and they're going up at an extremely fast pace. I am very, I'm cut off, sorry.
Thank you. I agree with what Tom just said about the schools and the legislature, and we got to change that. But the reality is we have a $350 million budget in the city of Lynn. $200,000 of it goes to our school. Salaries us $150. And I keep hearing about the trash fee and transparency. Well, that discussion went on for 2 years. And the $2.7 million that we raise with the trash fee goes to paying the $7 million trash bill that we have in the city of Lynn. So when people say that we're taking that money and we're not putting it towards what it was meant for, that's completely false. The reality is that the only way we're going to be able to lower our tax base or our taxes for the people who live here is by bringing in more development. That's exactly what the council has been doing the last 3 years. Monroe Street, you have a $100 million building, where before that was started, you were getting $30,000 a year in taxes. Now you're going to get commercial space, which is 100% what they're going to pay in taxes. You're talking about $150,000 a year in taxes coming into the city that we weren't getting before. The development on the Linway is starting to happen. You're actually seeing the Beacon Chevrolet site being completed. On average, you haven't seen it started? They haven't been down there working? No, I'm serious. That's what they're doing. They're down there starting the development, and, you know, it's just not enough time, 1.5 minutes.
Give him another minute. Give him half of my minute.
Can I take his minute? Thank you. But, I mean, we're actually working on bringing hotels to the city. There are developers that are coming here every single day, meeting with the mayor, meeting with my office, meeting with all the different agencies in the city. So they're realizing the potential that's here in the city of Lynn. We have on average, this year alone, we're doing over 80 shows downtown in Lynn at City Hall, which is bringing on average 2 or 3 nights a week, 2,000 people. They're going down, they're eating in our restaurants, they're going to the bars afterwards, they're using our parking. There's a lot of development that's happening here. I'm sorry, thank you.
And I'm an optimist like Darren. I believe that all the development, there'll be thousands of people coming with extended income, flourishing downtown.
Thank you. So I believe that the taxes is a huge issue, especially for the elderly in the community and the disabled. The taxes keep going up and the services are going down. Now, I really do feel that development is great. We want to see our city develop, but who is the development going to be for? Because who can afford to live in these expensive apartments? I know that one of my children is right out of college, right? She's a college student, and there's no way she can afford to live in one of those new apartments. So if you think about it, like, yes, it's great to have development, but for who? Who is it really benefiting? Who is going to be forced out? A lot of residents feel that they're being forced out because of the high cost of rent, and they can't afford to live there. So we need to have more home buying programs so people can own their homes and get out of the rental. For them, it's a rental nightmare because the rents, they just keep going up. And these new developments, they need to have affordable housing, because if they don't, then, like I said, the college students, the elderly. They will not be able to live in these nice new apartments. And we need to make sure that there's no tax breaks, because why would there be tax breaks? They're going to be making a ton of money off these developments. And yes, these people are coming from other communities to live in Lynn. And we need to do something now to make sure that the people who live here already can stay here. We need to apply for more grants. It's that simple.
Thank you all for those responses. Just going to bring the mic back down to Lane. At this time, we're going to have you all give your closing statements. Same rules apply, 90 seconds for your closing statements. We'll start with Wayne and all the way down.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Wayne Losey, Ward 1 City Councilor. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be the Ward 1 Councilor. I enjoy the work. I want to continue to do the good work that I've started with. And as we talked about today, tax relief is an important thing for many of the residents in Lynn and the homeowners, whether they be elderly or young families starting out. It's very difficult. And we don't want to keep raising taxes. So I'm happy that we are moving forward with what I mentioned earlier, that we're going to become a green community. Well, that's one example of many that we need to move the city forward, leveraging federal and state funding sources like that, and that will bring tax relief. Quality of life issues are very important as councilor, and I'm very proud of the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I return all my calls, I return all my emails, I respond to any messages. Anyone that contacts me, I'm very happy to get back to them and even show up at their house. I'm proud of the fact that this council is doing a very good job. We work well together, and I hope we can continue for another term, and I would humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Lynn Community TV for inviting me here tonight, for all the other councilors and candidates for their courtesy in their answers. I believe that I want to commend the mayor and the unions in the city for doing the contract which allowed for the healthcare workers to take on some of the healthcare premiums, which allowed the city to balance the budget this year. I am running for Ward 1 Council. I ask for your vote on November 5th. I know there are a number of forums that are scheduled for next week. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town. I'm going to visit my son in California, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to attend those. If anybody wants to get in contact with me, my phone number is 781-254-5861. I live at 37 Lad Hill Road, and over the weekends of the last couple of weekends, I have been going to convenience stores and sitting out in front and talking to the constituents. And I look forward to seeing some of you there and having conversations about some of the topics, many of the topics that we spoke about tonight. You can call me if you'd like any other input and my opinion on any matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try not to be as long as I was a few minutes ago. I want to thank the residents of Ward 3 for electing me as their council for the last 14 years. I've lived in Ward 3 my entire life. My kids, 7th generation, going to Avon School, which is on Easton Ave. And I think Ward 3 can show the rest of the city how it's done. We've got a $100 million school that we had built there 3-4 years ago that myself and Councilor at Large Barton worked very hard with the community, spearheaded that spot for it to be done. We're the first in the city to have a 62-plus residence for people to live where there are over 50 people living. We're also in the process of working at the old Marshall Middle School site to create affordable housing for some of the residents, as well as senior housing in that area. We've had over 12 miles of roads that have been fixed. Every single park, all 5 of them in my ward, have had money invested in them to have them refurbished over the last several years. Also, 2 years ago, we were talking about receivership in the city of Lynn, and this year, we had a $5 million surplus. That's because of the efforts of the council, working with the mayor and the CFO, and I want us to continue to do that. We work great together. So humbly, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Calucci, Ward 4 City Council. I lived in Ward for my entire life. I'm married to minority, Carolina Calucci, and I love what I'm doing. I love serving my constituents. I've been doing this for 27 years, and I want to do it another 2 years. I ask you to vote. You can call me on my cell phone if you need my love, 781-953-7970.
Hi, my name is Natasha Madri, and I am running for City Council in Ward 4. I am asking you for your vote on November 5th. I am number 1 on the ballot. Please reach out to me if you need a ride to the polls. My phone number is 617-755-3853, and I will definitely make sure that you find your way to the polls. A little bit about me. I was the first in my family to go to college, and after college, I went to Regis College. And after Regis College, I went to New England School of Law. So as an attorney, I plan to use my law degree in order to advocate for you and bring your voice to the table. And if you are ready for change, please vote for me, because I believe that I am ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work and change the city for what I know that it has the potential to be. And a city that works not just for some, but for all. Especially, I believe all wards should be as nice as Ward 1, and that is what I want to work towards. So please vote for me on November 5th. Natasha Madri, thanks.
Hi, Diana Chakoudas. I'm the Ward 5 counselor. I enjoy being the Ward 5 counselor for the last 6 years. I enjoy meeting with the residents of Ward 5. I was brought up in Lynn. I've lived in Ward 5 all my life, brought my children up in Ward 5. Now my grandchildren live in Ward 5. I'm just asking you on November 5th, please vote for Diana Chakoudas. Thank you.
To the residents of Ward 5, you've seen me. This is the 3rd time I'm running. I'm 27 years old. I started when I was 22. And I would not be doing this if I did not believe that the city was in desperate need of change. I'm running because I want to make sure that all of our voices are heard, from Pine Hill to downtown and every street in between. It shouldn't matter who you are, what language you speak, or who you're connected to. You deserve to be heard, because not only that's just what a community is, you're paying for service when you elect a councilor as well. And if they're not serving you, then it's time to vote for change. If you vote for me, I promise to host monthly roundtable meetings in every part of the ward. I promise to create a Ward 5 team made up of volunteers, such as our seniors and our youth from our high school, to get out there, do that outreach, and tell you what's going on. When I become councilor, you become councilor too, and that's a promise. Vote for me November 5th. The address is 90 Commercial Street, and if you need an address or you need to get in touch with me, call me at 781-521-7271. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cinda Dunn, and I'm a candidate for Ward 6 City Councilor. I'm the daughter of Cambodian genocide survivors who came to the States as refugees. I grew up in Current Circle, and our family has gone through foreclosure. We know what housing insecurity is like. I'm the daughter of a union member. We know the value of what unions mean to our city, especially in Lynn. And I understand that, and as somebody who struggled finishing their undergraduate degree, I understand that we need to encourage more of our youth to look into trade options. You know, Tech has a great E-Team program where a lot of my friends have gone through that program, have become machinists, and have now worked at GE, and that is amazing. And I want to thank the Ward 6 voters who voted for us in the preliminary election. This is something that no one has ever seen before. And people are excited for the first time. They get to see a woman run for Ward 6 City Councilor and win a preliminary. That is something that is, as I was shocked, I was humbled, I was scared, and most of all, I was excited because residents for the first time are feeling heard and seen. So I humbly ask for your support on November 5th. I will work to ensure that Lynn continues to be a home for our future to call home, to make sure that it's affordable, that our children have access to quality education, that we continue to bring our community into conversations and be more proactive and put our community and residents first over any type of development or any type of corporation. Thank you. Ran out of time.
Hi, I'm Fred Hogan. I'm the present Ward 6 City Councilor. I am change. Since January, I've been out there working in the ward, seeing you at your houses, answering your phone calls, going out there 100 miles per hour. I work 11 to 7. I sleep 4 to 5 hours of sleep a day. I answer all my phone calls no matter what time it is. I return your call and get back to you. Tonight is a prime example. We've got a lot of rain coming through our area. You can call me anytime. 7 a.m. I'm going to bed, but you can call me till 7 a.m. But I will continue to work hard for you. No matter what. Anything you need, you call me, and I'll be at your door. And I'm the baby of 8 kids. I grew up on LaGrange Terrace. I have a wife, Quito. I have a son, Randy, LaShonda, Miranda, and Freddie Jr. And without my family, none of this would be possible. And one more thing. Every single candidate in this room, I respect you so much because what you put your families through to run for office is unbelievable. I never knew this before being a community activist for 25 years, but now I respect every single person in this room, and I respect what you guys all do for the city of Lynn or what you want to bring to the city of Lynn. But I'll tell you what, if you want someone that's going to work hard for you, Fred Hogan is the person. I've been doing it since January, 100 miles per hour. You can call me Mr. 24/7. Vote Fred Hogan, November 5th. Thank you.
Alexis Reynoso here, running for Ward 7. Trying to bring some change to the city, change to the ward, trying to improve the conditions of our school parks, and trying to bring, help the city bring some investment so we can actually move forward. For many years, we've been technically in the same position, just dealing with the daily stuff. And I think it's time for the city of Lynn to really exploit the potential that we have. And I'm just a regular guy, just like you. I know the daily struggle that everybody poses. I've been up and down, deal with many situations, but always find a way to succeed. Very persistent person and trying to bring that energy and motivation to the city hall. Vote number 1 on November 5th. Thank you.
John J. Walsh, current Ward 7 councilor. I want to echo what Freddie said. If you hadn't had the opportunity to run for public office and, be on Facebook and all the fun things that go with it, I just got to commend everybody here, no matter what. You put yourself out there, you put your families out there. We have to wear what we say on our sleeve. And, this is politics. It's what it is, and I respect everybody. I've been the Ward 7 councilor for 2 terms. I've been someone who lived in that ward his entire life. Most of my family lives in that ward. My mom and dad, they run a business here in the city of Lynn. They've been doing it since the 70s. I work for that business. I'm the current person who organizes the Lynn Christmas Parade. I'm a community guy. I was doing it before I was an elected official, and I'm going to continue to do it even if I'm not an elected official. And I think that's what's really important about people who come to this table right now, and you look at people that bring all these ideas and things, and it's great, but who's been out there doing it? And who's done it before they wanted to run for office. If I'm elected, I'm going to continue to do it. I'm your nuts and bolts guy. You can call me anytime. Everybody has my cell phone number online. And if I'm not elected, I'm still going to do it. So I'm just that type of guy, And I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Thank you all for being here. George Mateus could not be here with us today due to the death of his father. We all sending him and his family our deepest condolences. Thank you all for tuning in for tonight's candidate forum featuring candidates running for ward councilor in Lynn. We will be holding one more forum this week, tomorrow night, councilor at large candidates, and that will also be live at 7 p.m. We understand that we cannot get to a lot of the questions or topics that everyone wants to hear, so we encourage you to visit lyntv.org and go to the election section where we have uploaded forums from other organizations, candidate profiles, and to learn more about the candidates. Before we go, I just want to remind everyone that we will be holding a live election results show on Tuesday, November 5th, starting at 8 p.m. The panelists will offer their opinion on the races and reveal the results as soon as they come in. All right, thank you once again for watching LCTV Candidate Forum. I'm your host, Mukala Kabongo. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.